What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for watching, and if you subscribe, thank you for that as well. Today we're going to learn how to make epic hyperlapses like this. So there's lots of different ways to create hyperlapses, but I'm going to show you what I believe to be the best way to create the highest quality of hyperlapse. And there's going to be three main steps, and we're going to use a few different programs. I personally use Adobe Creative Suite because it has all the tools that I need, and I really like the way that it works, and it's all there in one spot. You can use other programs, but that's what I'm going to be going through today. And so hopefully you have those tools. There's going to be Adobe Lightroom, Adobe After Effects, and I'm going to use Premiere Pro, but you could also use Final Cut Pro or another video editor. The main two important ones are Lightroom and Adobe After Effects. So there's three main steps to a hyperlapse. The first one is to take your images. A hyperlapse is essentially a series of images that you take and then you sequence them together into sort of a stop motion video. And then the second step is you're going to edit the images to make sure that they look super cool and you get that really epic, vivid color. And then the third is you create a sequence out of those. Now, one tip is to make sure that whenever you take your photos that you shoot in RAW. You're going to get the best dynamic range this way, and it's going to lead to a better end product. And that's one of the reasons that we use Adobe After Effects, because it can take raw photos and put them into a sequence, whereas Premiere Pro can only do JPEG, so you're not going to get as high quality of an image. So the first step is take your pictures. And the best way to get the most perfect pictures is to use a tripod, and you're going to turn on your grid to where you have an X in the center of the screen. And you want to put that X on a specific spot and keep it on that spot for every picture you take. You will take one step and take a picture and keep going until you get to the end of your hyperlapse. Now, I use 24 frames per second, so you're going to get about 1 second of footage for every 24 pictures that you take. I usually try and get between 5 and 10 seconds for a hyperlapse. That seems to be a pretty good length of time. Anything shorter than that goes by like that, and it just doesn't seem that great. So taking your images, make sure that you focus it, put the grid right in the center of the spot or point of interest that you picked, and then take a step, take photos. You could even do this with your iPhone. You don't need to have a fancy camera or anything. You won't get as high quality of result because you can't shoot in RAW on an iPhone, but you can still do it. And so this tutorial is not just for people with DSLRs. So number two, we're going to jump over to the computer and we're going to edit the photos, and then we'll show you how to sequence them together. Okay, so open up Adobe Lightroom and get all of your photos imported. The next thing you're going to want to do is edit the photo the way that you like it. And I typically just select all of the photos and apply the exact same settings because I use manual camera settings, so it's not really going to change a whole lot and it'll look good throughout. You can get a lot of different presets. This is actually a preset from Chris Howe. He's got some really awesome photography and video work. I'll put the link to his channel and also his presets in the description below. So once you get your photos how you like, you're going to want to click on Library and Control A on Windows to select all. And then you can go back to Develop, and then you're going to Export. And this is really important. You want to make sure that whenever you export, make sure to choose the folder you want here. I have it in Lancaster Bridge RAW edited. And the most important part here is to make sure the file naming, rename to custom name sequence. If it's not in sequence, you'll have a lot of issues trying to set this up in Adobe After Effects. So select that, type your custom text here, and the start number, I just use 1, and then you're going to click Export. And we're going to jump over to Adobe After Effects. Okay, so we're in Adobe After Effects, and you're going to want to just create a brand new project, and you're going to double click here in the media panel, which, there we go, and navigate to your folder with all your photos, and you're going to click on the very first one, scroll to the end, hold down the shift key and click left click, and then select right here camera raw sequence, and then import, and click OK. Alright, so it's put it in a sequence for us. And one thing that I had trouble with when I was first trying to figure out how to do this is you want to make sure that you click here to no composition or none, and then drag this and drop it in the timeline. And then that's pretty much all you have to do in After Effects. You're just going to go up to File, Export, Add to Render Queue. You can click here if you want to change the name. And then I usually just export it as it sits here for Windows. Best settings and lossless. So then click Render, and it'll take a decent amount of time depending on how big a hyperlapse you're going to make. This is going to take about 7.5 minutes to render. And after that, you can pretty much upload it into any movie program that you like. I'm going to jump over to Premiere and show you how to finish up the hyperlapse to get the best results. Alright, so we're in Adobe Premiere Pro in an untitled project, and you're going to import first a video clip that is the right sequence. So I like to use 1080 at about 24 frames per second. So find a video clip you have of that. We're going to drop it into the timeline to make sure our sequence is set up how it will be for whatever video that we're going to be creating for our final project. So I'm going to go over here. And we're just going to grab something that I know is the right one. We're going to drop it in there. Alright, then just delete that. And then double click on this again. And we're going to import the hyperlapse AVI file that you created. And you're going to drag and drop that into the timeline. And you make sure to hit keep existing settings or it's going to mess up the sequence. Alright, so you'll notice that because your camera pictures are so large, especially if you're using a 1080 timeline, that it's going to be zoomed in. So first thing you're going to do is go over here to Effect Controls and Scale and hit 34%, and it's going to drop it down to as wide as it can be. It's still going to cut off a little bit, but it looks much better than before. There's not really a way around that with the way that the aspect ratio of pictures is set up on most cameras, and then the more widescreen ratio of videos. So after you do that, it would look pretty good like this. I don't know if it'll play. It's a little bit laggy, and it's pretty smooth. Depending on how good and steady you did your pictures, you might not even need to do this. But I typically add warp stabilizer just to get it as smooth as possible. So before you can actually add warp stabilizer, you're going to right click on the file in the timeline and click Nest. Hit OK, and then find warp stabilizer, drag and drop it onto the nested sequence, and it's going to automatically analyze it. It usually goes for about 50% smoothness, which looks pretty good. If you feel like it's zooming in too much, you can try 25%. You can play around with the settings a little bit, but usually it looks pretty good, just the default settings from my experience. Alright, so once you've added the warp stabilizer effect, all you need to do is make sure you've selected the timeline here. Click Export, Media, and then I usually export YouTube 1080 and maximum render quality right here, and then hit export. And if you follow these steps, you should get a pretty cool hyperlapse that looks something like this. Alright guys, I hope that was helpful and you can now successfully create an awesome hyperlapse for your video content. If you like this video, please share it with anybody you think might be interested in this type of content. I plan on putting a lot of effort and work into this channel this year and really growing a community of videographers, photographers, and people that just like to have fun and learn new things and also see what I'm up to. So like this video if you thought it was helpful, and please subscribe to the channel. There's also the links below for Chris Howe if you want to check him out. He is an awesome photographer and videographer, and also his presets if you want to use those for your next hyperlapse. So until next time, we'll see you later.